Yes. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. My name's Juliana Herlar, and I'm a registered therapeutic counselor. I live on the Vancouver Island, BC. And I also am a spiritual counselor. And what this means is that I support specifically right now in my practice, support sensitive people, so highly sensitive people, and also empaths to integrate the mind, body, and spirit connection. So we live in a world that is based up here most of the time. It's all about thinking and planning and strategizing and how can I do better and how all of this stuff, right? And we disconnect from the body, which is always giving us the most amazing information, but we're not really sure how to listen to it. And then the spirit portion is just whatever that means for you. So, some people are really connected to Mother Earth. Some people have a spiritual practice. Some people don't know but are curious. So, I just help people integrate that into their lives so that they can feel more whole and more connected to themselves as they walk through this world that is kind of crazy sometimes, right? So today, I'm going to be talking about our body's wisdom and how we connect to it. And I'm going to do a little teaching with also a little conversation. So I might ask you guys questions. You can share or not share. It's totally up to you. And you can also just type in the chat. And I'm open to questions as we go through. We're also going to do a practice session, so where we practice moving our bodies and listening to what our bodies want to do instead of our minds telling our bodies what to do. So, any questions before I start? No? Okay. So, our bodies, they're, like I said, they're communicating to us all the time. So, right now, I'm noticing in my own body. And as I'm doing this, I'll just ask you to, pay attention to what's going on in your body. I'm noticing a little jitteriness. I'm noticing like a fluttering in my chest and a little fluttering in my stomach. So those are just what my body's telling me that. So just notice right now, just take a moment and do a little check-in and see, what are you noticing in your body right now? Are you noticing anything? And then if you'd like, you can feel free to type that in the chat or unmute yourself and share. Fluttery tummy, Bali. Tightness, Sandy. Heavy excitement in your chest. So now I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a moment, if it feels comfortable. And just bringing the awareness to your breath. And start to just deepen your inhale. And then allow yourself to exhale fully. Just taking a few focused breaths. Allowing that oxygen to fill your body. And then when it feels right, you can gently open your eyes. Now, just do a quick scan if you're noticing anything different in your body. So what I notice is that the flutter in my chest is kind of dissipated. And the fluttery in my stomach has also just calmed down a little bit. So these messages, that fluttery, I think some of you were here with Danielle's talk last month, where she was talking about that fluttery in our stomach and our chest is the nervous system drawing blood away from our internal organs. And it's doing this because it's checking out whether we feel safe or not in our bodies. And then based on what it picks up, it prepares us for a fight, flight, freeze, or fawning response. So it's constantly, as we're going through our daily life, our nervous system is constantly scanning our environment and our surroundings and the people that we're with. So it's picking up on facial expressions, smells, tastes, even the energy that's happening around us. And it's looking for these clues of feeling connected and safe. And when it doesn't feel connected or safe, it'll send messages to the rest of our body to prepare us to be on guard, to fight, to flee, or to fawn. And fawning is a newer term that is used in a nervous system response, where it's often young children develop this, and it turns into people pleasing as we get older. We get really good at noticing what other people need, and that keeps us safe. I'll give you some personal examples of that a little bit later. So it uses our emotions, which are expressions that can be triggered by our thoughts, outside experiences, and then memories and sensations in the body. And emotions are this natural part of human experience that still kind of elude the research community with any precise explanation of how or why. They can't quite narrow down. They can't give it this perfect scientific explanation, which I love, because I love it when, there's a little mystery, right? Mysticism to us as humans. So I believe that we have these emotions to carry trauma and experiences that we have out of our bodies, right? And to fully experience our wild, wonderful, and sometimes painful human adventure, right? Those emotions allow us to be fully in. And the very root of the word emotion comes from the French émotion, which literally means to move. So we often stifle our emotions, push them aside push them down because they feel really uncomfortable in our bodies. Okay? When we feel anger, when we feel shame or guilt, it can feel really icky to experience that. But we always, after allowing our emotions to flow, have a sense of relief afterwards. So who here has had that feeling after you have a really good cry? Right? There's a sense of relief. Yeah. And that's that experience of allowing the emotions to flow, to let them out. But sometimes, I don't know about you, I'm not going to cry, right? I don't want to cry right now. But if eventually we feel better afterwards. So we also have this other part of our internal human experience, and this is called interoception. And this is our ability to pick up on sensations going on in our body. So just at the beginning there, where I said, okay, what are you noticing in your body? And I was noticing that flutteriness, and Sandy, you had the tightness, and Bali, that flutteriness. That's called interoception. And that is our ability to pick up on the sensations that the body is feeling inside of us. So a very good example of that is our stomach growling, right? We're hungry, so our stomach growls. That's an example of interoception. Or the beating, like sometimes you can tap into like your heart beating in specific situations, right? Without having to feel your pulse, you can feel that sensation. And often I see this, it's we get a little nervous about those sensations that we pick up on, especially when they're a little more out of the ordinary, right? And so it's like, oh, I want to push this aside. And I remember the first time, like I've experienced this my whole life, and one where I've been very good at noticing, like even a week before I get a cold, I could feel it in my body, but it wasn't like a scratchy throat or a queasy stomach or anything like that. It was just like a sense that I had inside my body. And I'm wondering if anyone else has ever experienced that. Yeah, Bali. Yeah, Sandy. Yeah, Jen. Bahar. Marjan. Amazing. Yeah. And I didn't really know what that was. I just thought it was kind of normal. And I was getting a cranial sacral session done, where they tap into that really underlying sensation of the body. And my friend said to me, she was like, oh, you really notice these tiny little nuances that are happening in your body. And I was like, oh my goodness, I totally do. Like she could pick up on that in my body. And it's a really brilliant connection that we can develop to listen to what's going on internally for us. So the nervous system working, the emotions, and the interoception, those three things are all happening at the same time in our bodies. They're always giving us clues. They're always picking up on like our external experience. They are also always remembering past experiences and memories that we have. They're creating this amazing mosaic that is our bodies and what's going on inside of us all the time. So when these three are working together in an ideal environment, we can tap into our emotional and physical experience and our intuition, and then use our intelligent mind to determine what we need to support ourselves in our world. So who here has ever like just been like, I gotta work really, really hard. I gotta go to school. I gotta work these 2 jobs. I've gotta work out. I've gotta cook family dinner. And then you have a holiday and you get sick. Has anyone ever experienced that? Yeah, Jen, yeah, Hedy, Bahar, Marjan, yeah. So that's the disconnect from what our body is telling us that it needs during that super busy. We're just like, no, I got to get all this shit done. So I'm going to ignore everything else. I'm going to ignore everything my body's telling me. And then when you have space, the body's like, okay, now we're flat out resting, right? And this is what I call, and there's many different definitions of this, but this is what I call being disembodied. We are not in our body. I'm wondering if any of you have an idea of what disembodied might mean for you. You can type in the chat or unmute yourself. Yeah, Bali?
Yeah, so it presents in many different ways. Things don't feel real. I sometimes feel like I'm looking at myself from outside myself. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways it presents depending on the intensity, but it's uncomfortable, and it's definitely, I've been able to identify when I'm definitely not in my body.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that.
I think for me is not knowing how I feel about a certain situation, decision exactly. I think it's more when I need to make a decision that I can identify that the decision that I'm making, is it coming from me or is it because of something else? And sometimes I overthink this, that is like, does it feel in line? Does it something that I want? And then it gets me completely out of my body, and I need to remind myself, okay, now let's just forget about the decision. Let's go in the body first. And sometimes it can take days for me to come back and be able to decide what I want.
Thank you, Hetty. Okay. If something comes to you, you can feel free to add it into the chat, okay? So we disembody as humans because of two reasons, and they're often very intertwined together. And the first reason is through systems or systemic beliefs. So these are beliefs and rules that are often unconscious in our culture, country, religion, and family that have rooted themselves inside of us. Right? Like, for example, one is logic and science are more valuable than intuition. You can prove science, you can't prove intuition. So that's more important. If you're not tall and willowy and really skinny and fit into a size 2, then your body isn't valued. You don't have value as a human. Women cry too much, men shouldn't cry. Right? These are all these beliefs that are rooted in North American culture, right? That can impact, that land inside of us from a very young age. And the second one is trauma. So this trauma can be what is sometimes known as little t trauma or big T trauma. And the state of the trauma and the inability to move it through our bodies when it happens creates a disconnect to our bodies. And this is because really we haven't been taught how to allow that to happen, or we haven't been supported to allow that to happen. So has anyone ever seen like a film of a deer or an antelope that's getting attacked by a lion or a bear or a cougar, and it runs, and then as soon as it calms down, it stops and it starts to shake? Has anyone seen that? Yeah, I see some nods. Yeah. So that's a natural part of the trauma release. It gets all of the chemicals that are fired through the nervous system to get us to get up and go and run and keep ourselves safe. Humans stop this because it feels kind of weird and we have a judgment on it. Again, all unconscious. But when we allow our bodies to do what they want to do, for me, I often will shake. My whole body will shake. There's a release that happens. So through this trauma and this disembodiment that happens, it creates an impact on our minds, bodies and spirits. And it results in those emotions and chemicals being stuck in the body. So when they're stuck in the body, we create these continuous repetitions in our daily life, we tune out from our intuition, and we adapt our lives so that we feel safe. And our minds, our really intelligent human minds, come on full force so that these experiences that caused us to feel unsafe, whether they were systemic or some kind of trauma, that we never feel that again. We never have to experience that again. And this way of being in this world, which is we adopt this way of being to keep us safe, it helps to perpetuate these beliefs, emotions, and patterns that continue in this constant loop to protect us from not feeling what we fear might be true about us. So I'll give you an example. When I was a little girl, when I was 2.5, I was a really sensitive little thing. The story is that I would just watch everyone, and it was like, don't come near me. I was just watching everything. When I was 2.5, my little brother Adrian was born, and he was almost 3 months premature. And this was in the early 80s. And so this was very life or death. My very young parents, right? They were in there. I think my dad was 33 and my mom was in her 20s. They were terrified. And they told me this story both separately, as what they would happen. They were fighting. They would fight when Adrian was in the hospital because they were really scared. And what they would do is at the same time in the middle of their fight, they would turn to me to pick me up so they felt better. So my little 2.5-year-old little body was like, oh, this is what I do. I'm here to make mom and dad feel better. And this is not a thought. This is just a feeling, right? When we're that young, we're just having these feelings inside of us. And then as I grew up, so I have this experience in my body. This is what I'm here to do, make people feel better. And as I grew up, another little brother came along. The premature baby did really well. He's very healthy now. Both my two little brothers were, of course, we called them wild men. They ran around, they threw trucks at my bedroom door. Like, they were little crazy boys, right? Kind of typical for boys. I see that now. But I was like, oh, I took that on. I'm like, okay, my job is to be the good girl and make sure everyone's safe. There's stories of my parents not hearing my little brothers cry, and I would get up in the middle of the night and march into my parents' room and say, go get my brother. Right? So as I continued to go through my life, I was like, what I'm here to do is make sure that people feel okay. And what happened, this happened in relationships. I was like, okay, this person wants me to be this really kind and supportive and loving person. I'm going to put all of my needs aside. I'm going to ignore my anxiety. I'm going to ignore my depression. I am going to ignore the fact that I'm pissed off because they're not taking out the garbage. And I'm going to continue to push my needs aside. And this happened through my whole life. I was hyper aware of the fact that my job was to keep people happy. And what would happen as a little girl when I couldn't hold this emotion inside of me is that it would burst out of me. I would start to shake my hands. I would do this because it was so much emotion. And what would happen at my dinner tables as a kid growing up is my family would either laugh at me and I love my family, but this is what would happen is they would laugh because I was doing this. And that's what my family uses as defense, is laughter. Or they would just ignore me. They would just turn away and ignore me. So I've learned through that if I'm not people pleasing, if I'm not being super focused on the other person, I'm going to get laughed at or ignored. So I learned that my big emotions, not okay. My needs are going to be ignored, right? And So I continued to make these choices for myself in my friendships and my relationships, in my work environment. What do other people need from me? I will be that for you. I'm a very good chameleon, very great skills in that. But those skills need to come with bringing myself in as well, right? What my needs are, my emotions. So I'm just curious if you're having some memories or thoughts that are coming to you where you may have ignored your internal experience. And you're welcome to share, and you don't need to share. Just start thinking about how things might have happened for you as a child or an adult, where you start to push yourself aside, your emotions, your feelings. And anyone would like to share, they can, or you can put it in the chat. I'll just give us a moment.
I really liked your story, Juliana. I very much relate to it as the people pleasing and being very hyper aware of what everybody's feeling. And I've noticed that when I'm in that mood, I kind of lose quite a bit of energy. So it was very, I think, only recently that I'm becoming really aware of it, because at first it was like, am I an introvert or an extrovert? So then I realized it's whether I can express myself or whether I am people pleasing, right? It's like the battery's draining. There is some energy. But yeah, it's hard to figure out, I guess, for me, where I'm at. Like, it's almost like I woke up one day and I'm like, I got everything I thought I want, but wait a minute, I don't know if I enjoy any of this, or if any of it is mine or my idea to begin with. So yeah, at the very beginning of that journey of becoming embodied rather than disembodied.
Thanks for sharing that, Bahar. Thanks so much. I saw a couple nods too as you were talking. Yeah, and when we're disembodied, Bahar puts that really, really well, right? It's like we forget ourselves, we leave ourselves behind. Our batteries get drained because we're so focused outside of us that we forget to fill ourselves up. So our experience in our bodies, our experience in our life is the most important experience. It is a sacred experience because this is your life, right? When you're in your body making these choices, when your battery's drained, that's your life. When you're making these choices and you're choosing to fill yourself up, you get to claim that life. And when we come back into our bodies, we support those traumas, those emotions, and those beliefs to move. So my beliefs of I'm too much, or everyone's going to ignore me or laugh at me if I share, I had to come back into my body, which felt really uncomfortable to do because I wasn't safe in my body, right? To allow that to move out. And what I've experienced and what I've witnessed in my clients is that the more that we become embodied, the more fulfilling life is for us. The more we can trust our gut instinct or our intuition, the more we can fully be in relationship with someone, the more we can experience joy, like fully experience joy. And it's a gentle process. So I'm a big advocate for gentleness and kindness to ourselves and compassion to ourselves. We want to treat ourselves through this practice of re-embodiment and connecting to ourselves like we would talking to our best friend, a beloved pet, our children, our family members, right? With compassion and with ease, because sometimes that trauma or those beliefs are so ingrained in our body, it can feel scary to go into them. And we do this bringing this compassion and ease to this process and practice of being embodied with connection to the body through the breath and starting to slowly understand our internal landscape. And this is a form of deep intimacy with ourselves, right? We talk about intimacy with partners all the time, but intimacy with ourselves is such a brilliant gift. So in a moment, we're going to move into this actual practice of embodiment, of being in our bodies. But before we do, I was just wondering if there were any other questions or thoughts that came up for you while I was talking.
I'm gonna share something that I was reflecting on this morning, and now I feel like I had this moment of like really understanding it. I've been working a lot with like the shadow work and the inner child work over the past 6-7 months, which a lot of things have been coming up. And this morning I was doing this meditation, and I had this sense of overwhelming understanding of how like my mom used to be this, like she's still a very sensitive person, and my dad is a very like strong go-getter, like very he always knew what he wanted type, and my mom was the exact opposite. And then sort of like in a way she always been looked down at because of her emotions. And what happened, because she never had the opportunity to express her emotions, she started constantly express those emotions through sickness. She would get sick all the time, and then she craved that attention through sickness. And as a kid, like I totally understood her pattern. Even like I remember I was like 5 or 6, I told her like every time you're sad or you're not saying what you want, you get sick. And she never, like, now I think we have more like open dialogue about it. And then a part of me always craved what my mom craved. I think like in terms of emotional sensitivity, my mom and I are very alike. But because I always saw her, I labeled it as weak. That's why I never wanted to embrace that side of myself, because I didn't want to be spoiled, which one of my shadow words are spoiled, which is very interesting. And then on the other side, like a lot of my like very the characteristics of like wanting to help, wanting to make the world a better place is like my dad. But I always hated that because I thought he always manipulated that power. So see, like 2 main part of myself were rejected for like 33 years old, 33 years. Like this year, I'm still like diving deep, and I'm like, holy shit, like when you reject that part of yourself and try to soothe it over or like change it, and then you never become that like person that you're supposed to be, because you don't want to be like your dad, you don't want to be like your mom. And for the first time, like as you were speaking, like holy shit, like now I know why they're my parents. It's just so clear to me. So crazy. Anyway, it was a long description.
Thank you, Hetty. These things really get ingrained in us. They become these unconscious ways, right? And if you think of my family, my parents, if I look at both sides of my family, and I'm going a little further now into like ancestral stuff that's passed down, but my mom wasn't allowed to express her feelings, and her mom, my nana, she's this cute little 92-year-old now. She's so proud of the fact that she is that, like, keep calm. She can keep calm, right? She does all of her emotions in private, right? So it was learned, just unconsciously learned. So there's nothing else right now. We're going to move on to the practice portion. And this practice is called the nonlinear movement method. And it was developed by a counselor, clinical counselor down in the States. She's Austrian. Her name's Michaela Bohm. And I was trained by her. And she has this background in counseling and psychology and trauma work. And then she also is a lineage carrier of the Kashmir Tantric tradition, which is a tradition, a very feminine yogic tradition that's based on the energy movement through the body. So she created this method from her Western like psychology understanding with these Eastern based energy practices. And so we're gonna do about a half an hour practice today, which will leave us about a few minutes at the end to do any check-ins if we want to. And you'll need like a mat and a blanket. I'm actually kind of thinking, actually, no, never mind. So you'll need a mat on the floor, a blanket. I like to practice on my carpet with just a nice blanket down. And then something warm to kind of keep yourself kind of warm afterwards for rest. So I'll just give everyone a minute to get themselves settled. And then I'm going to show you and talk about the method just a little bit more. So just make sure you can still hear me okay.
Juliana, you're the host, right?
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Hetty. So the nonlinear movement practice is a modality that allows us to tap into the body's wisdom, and it allows the body to lead the way. So instead of allowing our mind to tell us what to do, we tap in to the body and what it wants to do. It's very typical to allow, as we said, our mind, or as we talked about, our mind to guide our body. And we often forget about this like that our body sometimes wants to move in a certain way. So nonlinear movement is done on hands and knees. It's begun on hands and knees. And if for whatever reason hands and knees feels uncomfortable to you, you can always come down on your forearms. You can lie down, you can kneel, or you can even sit in a chair. It's very flexible. And we are on the ground most often because this position helps us to stay grounded and connected to the earth, and also allows us to access and move the areas that we really want to get into, which is this whole soft front surface of the body. So our throat and our heart, all of our internal organs, the pelvic floor. Women often hold a lot of tension, and we hold it in our pelvic floor area. And also into the back, the spine, the neck, the shoulders, and our jaw, and then also our forehead. So all of these places are the places where the vagus nerve and the nervous system kind of go, like, let's lock down, right? And so through this practice, there's nothing you can do wrong, first off, nothing you can do wrong. Um, and so you might find yourself moving into all sorts of different positions. And I'll give you a demo in a moment. Um, I would suggest right now, though, for your first time practicing, that you don't stand up simply because it changes the energetics of the body. We want to keep the body grounded and connected to the floor, to the earth. So there's only two golden rules to nonlinear. The first one is we practice with eyes closed. So this supports you in really sensitizing to that internal experience, and it supports the nervous system in what we want to accomplish, right? To allow it to lead the way. And when we open the eyes, we're drawn to like, oh, I need to sweep the floor, or oh, my desk is a mess, or whatever it is, and then we start thinking. Okay, and so the second rule is just keep your body moving for the whole practice. So even if it's just like you're moving one finger, you're lying there and just moving one finger, or you're just sitting there and moving the spine slightly. And this is because when we go into the freeze state, we stop moving. And when we allow the body to just keep moving, eventually something will shift. So some of these big benefits of nonlinear movement are is that it unfreezes the body, it releases old programming, and it stops thought loops. So it can interrupt thought loops. And then it also encourages the nervous system to find that balance. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on what it's like. And I'm going to talk really loud because I'm just going to move away from my screen a little bit here. So you're going to start on your hands and knees. When you're on your hands and knees, the first thing you're going to do is just drop your head. I'm going to raise my head now so you can hear me. And you can just watch for a moment if you want. And then what we're going to do as the music starts to play in a moment, just start feeling into what you notice in the body. So eyes are closed. And what I'm noticing just right away is that my hips feel a little tight. So I'm just going to move my hips from side to side. And then as my hips move from side to side, I notice that my breathing kind of deepens. It's like, oh, it feels good to do that. And then I notice that, oh yeah, I just want to move my spine. Moving my spine. And then I'm noticing that flutteriness in my stomach is kind of moving up into my chest a little more. So you start like that, and then I often am on my knees for a lot of the practice. I will often sit. I'll be sitting like this, moving, and I will often be on my stomach or my back. So the point is to just allow your body to move however it wants to move, keeping the eyes closed, staying moving, even if it's just a finger or a bit of the spine, and to not stand up today. So I'm going to give you prompts throughout the class. There's going to be music playing, so you can drop into the music and just follow it. And you're just allowing the body to lead, remembering that nothing you can do is wrong in this practice. Okay. So there will be more instructions at the beginning. And then there will be long stretches where I just allow you to move without any interruption from me. Okay. And you can turn your cameras off if you would like to. You can leave them on. I like to let you know so that the nervous system hears this, that I will not be watching you. I look to the side, so that allows the nervous system to really just be like, oh, I can just really feel here. I don't have to worry about being on guard. Okay. So Hedy, I'm just going to get you to do a quick sound check for me, and then we will start. Can you hear me right like this? Yeah. And then I'm just going to start the music.
Great. I think
You hear?
oh
no, I'm not sharing my screen. Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on one sec.
I
will
say
do this. There we
could
go.
be a little bit louder.
Yeah, I'm not sharing my sound. That's why. There we go. Now let's try.
And do you want to speak? Also,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's perfect.
All right. So everyone just coming to their mats. And coming onto hands and knees. I'm just going to turn my camera off here so you know, but I'm still here. And coming onto your hands and knees and just dropping your head. And taking a moment to feel where your body meets the ground. And beginning to move your body, allowing your body to move however it wants to move. Starting to feel the different aspects of your body. Allowing yourself to move with whatever you're feeling. Tracking any physical sensations, any emotions, or any thoughts with your movements. Moving what you're feeling. Continuing to move as the music changes. Noticing that you may feel tightness, so then move as tightness. You might be tired, so move as fatigue. You may feel good, move as well-being. Just moving with whatever you're feeling. These feelings may change. There's no need to hold on to them. Just moving with whatever arises. continuing to allow the body to lead the way, tracking those sensations, thoughts, and emotions. And for a moment, allow yourself to move in a non-habitual way. If you tend to move fast, move slow. If you tend to move round, move jagged. If you tend to be quiet, maybe use your breath or some sound. Allow yourself to move in a different way than you habitually move. And in the midst of your exploration, begin to feel your heart. Feeling your heart, and then feeling your arms and your hands and your palms and your fingers as an extension of your heart. Moving your arms, your hands, your palms, and your fingers, and spreading the love throughout the room and towards yourself. Moving as love, being love, moving, being love. And gradually making your motions more and more subtle, still allowing your body to move, but more subtle now. Slowly allowing the movement to come to a rest, and allowing your body to come into whatever position you can rest in, relax in. Still feeling maybe the internal motions of the body until you gradually and naturally come to stillness. Resting in whatever position feels best to you. Taking your time to relax, rest, and integrate. And keeping your eyes closed, slowly beginning to move your fingers, your toes. Maybe deepening your breath. And allowing your body to stretch. And still keeping your eyes closed, rolling onto one side. And just lying there for a moment. And feeling the ground underneath you, the earth that's always supporting you. And when you feel ready, gently pressing yourself up with your eyes still closed into a seated position. And offering yourself some sort of gesture. So maybe it's a nod or a touch or a bow. Just acknowledging your practice and bringing the practice to a close. And gently opening your eyes and taking your time here. We are at 11:27. I'm okay to stay longer, so there's no rush. Allowing the medicine and the wisdom of your body to just let you know what it needs here. And whenever you feel ready to bring yourself back in front of the camera, you can turn your screen on or you can leave it off, whatever feels best for your body. Welcome back, everyone. It's nice to see your faces. So that's nonlinear movement. And that's connecting to your body and trusting that it knows what's best. One of the things that I really, really believe right now is that the practice of discernment, so taking in what comes from outside of us and then processing it through our internal landscape and then deciding what we want to take and deciding what we want to leave is so important right now. And I truly, truly believe that this can only be done if we are connected to ourselves fully. And so this practice of being embodied allows us to do that, right? If a friendship is starting to be like, oh, maybe it's time to let it go, you can really feel that in you. Or I need to make a career change, right? And your like body is going, yes. Or I don't really like what that person said. I don't believe that. Or I don't like what Juliana said. I like one of the things that she said, but maybe not all of the things. You know what's best for you. Always, period. Fully support that. And that comes from embodiment. So I know we're at time. I'm okay to stay a little bit longer. I do have, Hetty's going to send out a handout. And in that handout, I've got 2 nonlinear circles coming up in the next couple weeks, which you are invited to come to for free. So in that handout, there are links there where you can get your tickets. Okay. And there's a bunch of information about me and stuff and what we talked about today and how to get in touch. Okay. And then I also want to just open it if anyone wants to share what that experience was like or anything like that, if you want to stay longer.
I'll share because I have to get going. But I just noticed how instantaneously I felt really at home. Just kind of like this primal, but not in a wild way, like just almost just like I was like, oh my God, this feels so good. And why have I not done this before? And it just felt like, yeah, I just kind of want, it was like, I wanted to stay in it. Yeah.
That's so beautiful, Polly. Thanks for sharing that. The classes in the next couple weeks, they're going to be hour-long. So there are 2 hours where there's sharing, and then it's an hour-long practice. So if you want to come, it's a real deepening in that.
I would. And without taking up any more space, just thank you everybody for being here and bringing your energy. And thank you, Juliana and Hedy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Polly. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Polly.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I have a quick question. When you ask us to move in ways we don't before, so that's tough. What is the resistance? It was kind of like tough, and then I kind of like, and then I got tired. It was really like, it totally got me in my head a lot.
I love that noticing, Bahar. It's a bunch of different things. So it's our brains and our bodies fire with these neural circuits, right? We have more neural peptides in our stomach than we have in our brain. So when you get that gut feeling, it is legit, right? It's legitimately something. And those circuits I like this description that I learned from my yoga practices, is that those neural circuits are like a vinyl record, and that needle creates a groove however many times you decide to do something. So if you decide to move your body in one way, that groove, thank you, Jen. Are you going? Yeah. Okay. So that groove gets deeper and deeper with each movement. It's those neural peptide, the links that happen between them. And so then when you try to change that, right, you want to move your body differently, right? It's like the needle on the record that's doing the work. It hops it out of that groove and it starts to go along a new groove, and it's like, oh shit, I don't know what it's like to be in here. And then it falls naturally into that deeper groove again. So it's like all of these transmitters and all of those big words, right? They're used to firing a certain way. It's most easy for it to do. So that's why it feels hard. And that's why it's a practice to make. When we make any changes in life, it's so important to remember that it's a practice, because those things are ingrained in our minds and our bodies.
Yeah, it kind of, that was a great description. That's a good reminder to be gentle and when you're making changes, because even in movement, it was so like uncomfortable, right? And such simple movements, because I wasn't moving that much. So really like drove it home. Cool.
Thanks, Bahar, for sharing that.
I would share from my experience a little bit. At first, it was just very enjoying, like, and it was very relaxing. But after a while, it was just, I feel pressure in the area of my body that I know it's a bit tight, and there was resistance. Like I didn't want to move that way. I just wanted to be relaxed and like have a little bit of move. So suddenly I noticed like the attention went to the area that I have a little bit of tightness, and I could feel them all together.
Beautiful. Love that noticing and awareness that was like that unfolded for you, Marjan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I felt so much resistance to moving. It was so surprising to me. I feel like I am holding a lot of things right now, and I'm letting everything exist and take their own path. And I felt like that, the exact same feeling in my body. It's like, and then my body's like, I don't know, what do you want me to do? Just fuck off. Yeah, so it was just such a, yeah, so I feel like I realized how much I needed this, but I just couldn't go in how I normally go. And yeah, it was so interesting to see how just my body doesn't like it.
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's perfect, Hetty, that information, right?
One more questions at the beginning when you were explaining about emotion and nervous system and intro. I just missed a little bit. What is that intro that you were talking about?
Yeah, Marjan, it's interoception. And that is the internal perception of what's going on in our bodies. So it's like picking up on the growling stomach, right? That's an internal process that's happening, but we're like, oh yeah, that's internally happening for us. Or like when we were talking at the beginning, like of the like fluttery in the chest or the fluttery in the stomach, that's these internal perceptions that we have that our body is using to send us messages. But they can feel so subtle that they are often ignored. And then when we have something like for you, you had like this tension come up, right? That it sounds like you don't often like notice. We can judge something. So like if I'm suddenly getting a headache, right? And I don't get headaches very often. If I'm suddenly my head is starting to tingle and hurt, I could make a judgment on that and be like, there's something wrong. I haven't had enough water. What's going on with my body? Oh no, I'm going to, right? Like we create these stories. But maybe my body's trying to tell me something. Maybe it's like, oh, you just need to rest. Like, can you just lie with your eyes closed for a minute? Right? Or maybe it's just doing something that I still can't even comprehend, because our bodies are so magical and they're doing so many things at once that I personally don't believe that our brains can track all of that at the same time. And sometimes our bodies just need to do their things without us trying to stop them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking that question.
Any final questions for Juliana?
And so I'll just say go ahead, Marjan.
No. I just want to say thank you. That's it.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. On the stuff that Hetty's sending you, there's also going to be a link to the playlist that we did, so you can practice at home as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And I think I need to get some work done. Just spending a little bit more time with my body. But I think I'm glad, because next week I'm not scheduling anything, and I don't need to do multiple things at once, which is great. I think probably that's going to give my body a little bit of a break. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Juliana. Thank you, Marjan, for staying to the
Thank you so much.
So welcome.
Over.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I was very
Thank
happy
you.
to be here. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye, Hetty.
Bye.